After the burial, my husband's family took my only son and threw me out, like I was nothing. Please, before I continue, hit that subscribe button, like, and share this video with your loved ones. Thank you so much for your love and support. Now, let's begin. My people, life can turn in ways you never expect. My name is Ella Miles, and this story, it's my own. I've seen love that lifted me, and pain that almost destroyed me. But somehow, through the tears and the struggles, I found peace again. Sit down, relax, and let me take you back to where everything started. Logan Miles. Just saying his name still brings a gentle warmth to my heart. We met when we were just kids. I was 20, he was 22. There were no flashing lights, no inherited fortunes, no fancy cars. He had this laugh that could make the grayest day feel sunny, and eyes that saw the best in everyone, especially me. We fell in love in a tiny apartment with a leaky faucet and mismatched furniture we found on the street. He was working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet, and I was studying. Our date nights were walks in the park, sharing a single cone of ice cream, or cooking spaghetti and dreaming about the future. He'd hold my hands, look at me with so much intensity, and say, "Ella, one day, I'm going to give you the world." And I would just smile and kiss him, because the truth was, in that little apartment, with his arms around me, I already had it. He was my world. We had nothing, but we truly had everything. Our wedding was just as simple as our life. There was no big white dress that cost a fortune, no guest list with hundreds of names. It was a handful of our closest friends, and a justice of the peace in a small, quiet office. I wore a simple white sundress I'd bought on sale, and he wore his best, slightly too big suit. I remember he was so nervous, his hands were trembling when he put the simple silver band on my finger. He whispered to me, "It's not much now, Ella, but I promise you, it represents a lifetime of my everything." There were tears in his eyes, and in mine too. It wasn't about the party or the presents, it was about the promise. A promise to face whatever life threw at us, together. That day, standing there, I felt like the richest woman on earth. We celebrated by going to our favorite little diner afterwards. That was our reception. And it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. 2 years into our marriage, things started to shift. Logan was brilliant, he was a hard worker, but he was also a dreamer, an innovator. He had this idea, a business plan he'd been working on every single night after his long shifts. He told me there was an opportunity, a big one, but it wasn't here. It was across the sea, in Southampton. My heart sank a little, I won't lie. The thought of being without him was terrifying. But then I looked at his face, the way his eyes lit up with passion and hope. How could I stand in the way of that? We talked for hours, for days. We decided he would go first, set everything up, and then I would follow. The day I drove him to the airport was one of the hardest days of my life. We held on to each other so tightly. "This is for us," he kept saying, his voice thick with emotion. "This is for our future." I believed him. I waved until his plane was just a tiny speck in the sky, a knot of hope and fear tangled in my stomach. The first few months were a blur of late-night video calls and messages sent across time zones. And then, it happened. His idea took off. It was like watching a rocket launch. First, it was a small success, then a bigger one. He was doing so well, better than we had ever dreamed. He started his first company, then another. The man who used to worry about making rent was now a CEO. Our calls were filled with his excited voice telling me about new contracts, new employees, new buildings. He sent me pictures of gleaming office buildings with his name on them. He never changed, though. Not in his heart. Every call started with, "How are you, my love?" and ended with, "I miss you more than words can say." He was still the same Logan, my Logan. He was just finally showing the world the genius I always knew was there. I was so incredibly proud of him, my heart could have burst. And then, our greatest treasure arrived. A few months after Logan left, I found out I was pregnant. Telling him over a video call was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. He cried, I cried. He promised he'd work even harder to build a safe and beautiful world for our child. And he did. He couldn't be there for the birth, which was heartbreaking for both of us, but the moment our son, Aiden, was born, I put the phone to his tiny ear so he could hear his daddy's voice for the first time. Logan's voice was shaking with love as he whispered promises to our little boy. When Aiden was 3 months old, Logan finally came home for a visit. The moment he held his son for the first time, it's an image burned into my memory forever. The powerful CEO just melted. He was just a father, looking at his child with a love so pure and so overwhelming. He looked at me, with Aiden in his arms, and said, "Now. Now my world is truly complete." With Logan's success booming, he bought us a home. A real home. It was a beautiful house with a big garden for Aiden to play in. I moved in and made it our sanctuary. Logan would fly back and forth, and every time he came home, it was like a celebration. Our life was perfect. It was everything we had dreamed of while eating spaghetti on the floor of our tiny apartment. We had a beautiful, healthy son whose laughter filled every room. We had a love that had survived distance and hardship. We had financial security beyond our wildest imaginings. But it was never about the money. It was about the fact that we had built it all together, from nothing. We were a team. I remember one evening, Logan was home, and we were sitting on the porch watching Aiden chase fireflies in the garden. Logan wrapped his arm around me and sighed contentedly. "See, Ella," he said softly, "I told you I'd give you the world." I rested my head on his shoulder and replied, "You did. You always have." We were so happy, so blissfully, perfectly happy. And then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the world stopped turning. I was in the kitchen, humming along to the radio while preparing Aiden's lunch. The phone rang. I picked it up, expecting it to be Logan with his daily check-in call. But it wasn't his voice. It was a calm, clinical voice. A woman. She asked, "Am I speaking with Mrs. Ella Miles?" I said yes, a small shiver of unease creeping up my spine. "Ma'am," and her voice was so steady, so devoid of emotion. "We are calling from St. Mark's Hospital. There's been an accident. A motor accident involving your husband, Mr. Logan Miles." My breath caught in my throat. The wooden spoon I was holding clattered to the floor. "Is he okay?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. There was a pause. A terrible, deafening pause that stretched for an eternity. And then she said the words that would split my life into a before and an after. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. He was gone before the ambulance could reach him. I don't remember driving to the hospital. I don't remember anything except a roaring in my ears and the desperate prayer chanting in my mind. No, 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 this is a mistake, a terrible mistake." I burst through the emergency room doors, my heart hammering against my ribs. A nurse with kind, sad eyes led me down a long, sterile hallway that smelled of antiseptic and grief. The world seemed to move in slow motion. And then they opened a door. And I saw him. My Logan. My vibrant, laughing, full of life Logan, lying so perfectly still under a white sheet. It was him, but it wasn't. The life, the spark, the love, it was all gone. A scream got caught in my throat, a sound of pure agony. The room started to spin, the white walls closing in on me. The nurse's sad eyes swam before me, and then, everything went black. I fainted, collapsing right there on the cold, unforgiving floor of the hospital, my world completely and utterly gone. The funeral was a blur of black clothes, hushed whispers, and faces I barely recognized. Logan's family was there. His parents, his siblings. During our early years, they had been distant, disapproving of his marriage to a poor girl like me. But once his success grew, so did their presence in our lives. In my haze of pain, I thought they were there to support me, to support Aiden. I was so wrong. After the last of the mourners had left, they gathered in the living room of the beautiful house Logan had bought for us. Their faces were no longer sad, they were cold, hard masks. His mother, a woman who had barely spoken to me in years, looked at me not with sympathy, but with something that looked chillingly like disdain. His brother started talking about the companies, about Logan's assets, about his will. It wasn't a conversation. It was a declaration. The air grew thick with a tension that was far more terrifying than my grief. Then came the final, brutal blow. Logan's mother turned to me, her voice as sharp as glass. "The family has decided," she said, "that Aiden will be better off with us. We can give him the life his father intended for him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What? He's my son. This is our home," I cried, clutching a picture of Logan and me to my chest. His brother just scoffed. "This is a Miles family home," he said coldly. "And you are no longer a part of this family." They took Aiden from my arms. My sweet little boy, confused and crying for his mama. I tried to fight, but I was weak from grief, outnumbered, and completely broken. They packed a small bag of my things, walked me to the front door, and threw it onto the driveway. They closed the door on my face, locking me out of my home, away from my son, and out of the life my husband and I had built. I stood there, on the cold pavement, with nothing but a small bag and a shattered heart. I don't know how long I walked. Hours, maybe. The sun went down, and the streetlights came on, casting long, lonely shadows. My feet were sore, but I couldn't feel them. All I could feel was a vast, cavernous emptiness inside me. My husband was gone. My son was gone. My home was gone. Everything. In one fell swoop, my entire universe had been ripped away. I was nothing. A ghost. The tears that I had been holding back finally came, not as a gentle stream, but as a racking, soul-shattering storm of sobs. I stumbled into the middle of a quiet road, the asphalt cool beneath my knees. I just knelt there, in the middle of the street, under the pale glow of a streetlight, and I cried. I cried for my Logan, for my Aiden, for the life that was stolen from me. I didn't care about the cars. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted the pain to stop. I heard the screech of tires before I saw the lights. It was a sound that ripped through the quiet night. I looked up, my eyes blurry with tears, and saw two bright headlights bearing down on me. There was no fear. In that split second, all I felt was a strange sense of release. Maybe this was the end of the pain. The impact wasn't a violent crash, it was more like a sudden, hard shove that sent me sprawling, my head hitting the pavement with a dull thud. The last thing I remember was the dark silhouette of a man rushing towards me, his voice filled with panic and concern. And then, for the second time in just a few days, the world faded to black. But this time, the darkness felt different. It wasn't the darkness of loss. It was just quiet. A deep, silent, empty quiet. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing, a white ceiling. A white blanket. I was in a hospital again, but this place felt different. Calmer. There was a soft, steady beeping next to me, and the scent of flowers, not antiseptic. As my vision cleared, I saw a man sitting in a chair by my bed. He was handsome, with kind eyes filled with a deep, weary concern. He looked up when he heard me stir, and a wave of relief washed over his face. "You're awake," he said, his voice soft and gentle. "The doctors said you would be okay. I am so sorry. I didn't see you until the last second." It was the man from the road. The driver of the black Jeep. "My name is Jackson Caleb," he said. He didn't make excuses. He just sat there, looking at me with so much genuine remorse and kindness that I couldn't even begin to feel angry. I just felt tired. So incredibly tired. Over the next few weeks, as I recovered, Jackson, he insisted I call him Jackson, never left my side. He made sure I had the best doctors, the best care, in a private suite that felt more like a hotel room than a hospital. I slowly learned his story. He wasn't just some guy in a nice car, Mr. Jackson was one of the country's most successful billionaires, a well-known philanthropist. But he never acted like it. He was quiet, humble, and carried a weight of responsibility for what had happened. He told me he had been driving home late after a difficult meeting, lost in thought, and he would never forgive himself for not being more careful. When I was finally able to talk, I told him my story. I told him everything. About Logan, about Aiden, about being thrown out. I cried, and he just listened, his expression shifting from sympathy to quiet, righteous anger on my behalf. He didn't offer pity. He offered something better, a silent, solid presence that made me feel, for the first time in a long time, like I wasn't completely alone. Leaving the hospital was daunting. I had nowhere to go. Jackson wouldn't hear of me going to a shelter. He had a beautiful guest house on his expansive property, and he insisted I stay there, just until I got back on my feet. No strings attached, Ella, he promised. Just a safe place to heal. And that's what I did. For months, I healed. Not just my physical wounds, but the deep, gaping wounds in my soul. Jackson was my rock. He hired the best lawyers to start the fight for Aiden, a fight he funded completely. He never pushed me to talk, but he was always there when I needed to. He would bring me books, or we'd just sit in silence in his beautiful garden. He showed me a patience and a gentleness I had never known. Slowly, so slowly, the ice that had formed around my heart began to thaw. I started to smile again, small at first, then a little wider. I started to see color in the world again, not just shades of gray. 6 months after the accident, Jackson and I were having dinner. By now, a comfortable friendship had formed between us. He asked me about my dreams, my hopes before everything had happened. He made me feel like Ella again, not just a widow or a victim. Then, in his quiet, serious way, he told me that he had fallen in love with me. He asked me to marry him. I was stunned into silence. I looked at him, this incredible, kind, generous man, and I said no. My heart just wasn't ready. Jackson, I said, tears welling in my eyes, you are the most wonderful man. But my heart, it's still broken. It still belongs to Logan. Any other man might have been angry or hurt. But not Jackson. He just nodded, his eyes full of understanding. He reached across the table and took my hand. I can wait, Ella, he said softly. I will wait. Because a heart like yours is worth waiting for. And he did. He never pushed, never pressured. He just continued to be my friend, my staunchest supporter. A few weeks later, Jackson asked if I would be willing to meet his parents. I was hesitant, but I agreed. I was expecting people as wealthy and intimidating as his fortune, but they were the complete opposite. They were warm, loving, and down to earth. Jackson was their only son, and they welcomed me with open arms. His mother gave me the warmest hug, holding me for a long time. Jackson has told us everything, my dear, she said, her voice full of compassion. You are an incredibly strong woman. They didn't see me as a charity case or a tragic story. They saw me. They treated me like a daughter. They would invite me for Sunday lunches, and we would talk for hours. They spoke of Jackson's kind heart, of how they had been praying he would find someone to share his life with. Their love and acceptance was a powerful balm on my wounded soul. They showed me what family was supposed to feel like, a safe harbor, not a source of pain. Being surrounded by the love of Jackson and his family, I finally started to believe that I deserved to be happy again. I realized that moving on wasn't about forgetting Logan. It was about honoring his memory by living a full and joyous life. My love for him would always be a part of my story, the foundation upon which I was built. But Jackson was my future. One evening, we were walking in the garden as the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. He didn't have a ring this time. He just stopped, turned to me, and took both of my hands in his. Ella, he said, his voice earnest. My offer still stands. Not just to be my wife, but to be my partner. To fight for Aiden together. To build a new life. Let me help you find your happiness again. I looked into his kind, patient eyes, and this time, there was no hesitation. The tears in my eyes were tears of gratitude and hope. Yes, I whispered. Yes, Jackson, I will marry you. He didn't whoop or cheer. He just pulled me into a gentle, loving embrace, and we stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, heralding the start of a brand new day. And so, here I am. Happily remarried to the most wonderful man. And I have some good news to share with you all. After a long and difficult legal battle, with Jackson by my side every step of the way, we won. Aiden is back home with me. He's happy, he's thriving, and he adores Jackson. My life is full again, in a way I never thought possible. So why am I telling you all this? Because I need every single one of you, especially any woman out there who is feeling lost, broken, or hopeless, to hear this. Your story is not over. The end of a chapter is not the end of the book. Grief is real, and you must honor it. Let yourself feel the pain. But please, please do not let bitterness build a house in your heart. Do not let tragedy be the final word. Sometimes, the greatest kindnesses come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes, the person who will help you heal comes into your life through a door you never even saw. Be open. Be brave enough to be vulnerable again. And most importantly, know your worth. You are worthy of love, of happiness, of a beautiful life, no matter what scars you carry. My scars are a part of me, but they don't define me. They are a testament to the fact that I survived. And you can survive, too. Your sunrise is coming. You just have to be willing to turn your face to the dawn. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring African tales. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue sharing stories that touch hearts and change lives. Until next time, remember, love, faith, and courage are the greatest treasures you can ever have. God bless you all. Bye.